morning. I did not pass my Yoruba language assignment yesterday, so please forgive me, I can't use any of the native language. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all to day 2 of More Learning and Impact Deviation. Allow me to call my first guest, a special one for that matter, Prince Joseph Idiong, Director General Association of Nigeria Exporters. I would also like to invite on stage Mr. Tukisang Sinne, Chief Operating Officer of Vision Quest Institute, South Africa. And I'm not sure if Mr. Arnold Jackson is here. And lastly, I was supposed to have our beautiful lady from, is she not here? It's only 2. Thank you so much. Alrighty, thank you so much and welcome. Oh, they just turned me into a cheese. Morning, gentlemen. How are you? So today we are focusing on a very amazing topic, the evolution of food security. And of course, today we are not only looking at the food security alone, but we are focusing more on how we can explore the role of commodity exchange and improving the food security. So with me, I've got this wonderful guest, and I think yesterday we enjoyed their contribution. And today we get to explore deeper and deeper towards understanding market access in Africa. Let me start with you, Chief. I'm looking at the landscape of Africa as a whole. How can we improve, or how can commodity exchange improve efficiency, transparency in the export industry or processes in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. The commodity exchange as a business is a situation or a facility or a mechanism where you have a location where buyers and traders will have to trade and do their businesses, transactions. And that is done in different ways. You do it like what they say, spot markets, where you have face-to-face interactions, transactions. You can also do it with those without being there, electronically. So that platform is actually the main issue, which means you can sell or buy from a distance. So it's very key to export sector. Very, very key. Because export is actually trading across the border. And so when there is a commodity exchange, you are actually at a platform that you are doing export. So in Africa, it is very important for us to encourage more, to encourage the commodity exchange transactions. We also, it's important to ensure they are viable. It's important to also make sure they are, if they have, we have regional capacities, because if we have too much mushrooming of these exchanges, we may not get the best. In Nigeria, we need it more than any other country, apart from our size. And the population also is great. The farmers' population great too. Because of our size too, we need it, especially when we have challenges like infrastructure, or roads you cannot really move goods, the rail systems just coming. So it applies too for Africa. We have so many things to hedge against, like getting products across the borders, moving from country to country. So we face tariff and non-tariff challenges. So commodity exchange is the one that will do it. And of course, price volatility. For instance, in Nigeria, you discover that in Nigeria, our dollar has been galloping front and back for some time, and it's not quite good with exporters. I have, my ears are full. I remember some weeks back when dollar fell from 1,800 to about 1,500 or 200. I was called left, right, and center as if I was the policy person. They were telling me that they bought products at 1,800 rate and exported. And now dollar is falling to 1,200, 1,300. How will they recover their money that they're already running into losses? And that's happening because we are not using commodity exchange, where you would have hedged against prices, hedged against delivery, hedged against quality and stuff like that. So we, in the country, in Nigeria, that's the city. I believe in most African countries we have that too. And also you notice that these international agencies will be in a position to procure things. I know the World Food Program person I saw yesterday, those people buy a lot of stuff and send somewhere. If you are buying, if there is a commodity exchange that is working, they are ready to back the commodity exchange and make sure that they can predict the purchases, fix the forwards, fix the prices in advance, because that's where you can say, I will buy this thing, supply me this thing in October at this price. You take into consideration anticipated interest rates. Unlike spot, that you have to buy at the same price at the same time. So it's key that commodity exchange, whether in Nigeria or Africa, is important. But I will also maybe looking at whether every country should have, or whether there should be many in a particular country. Thank you very much.
Awesome. I'm also taking note from you where you emphasizing issues of currency imbalance, because it really plays a big role from the point of productivity and profitability. Thank you so much. Dr. Sene, looking at this industry again, we have commodities that are not fully explained. But what is your take on how commodity exchange can establish or enforce standards and the policies for quality assurance and to ensure better trade in facilitations across Africa?
Thank you very much. And I think I'll try to pick up from where the chief ended. That I think the importance of the communique exchanges, particularly with standards, is that firstly they can set those standards. It's important that it's very clear as to what the standards are for purposes of ensuring proper grading, proper quality, as well as classification of different commodities, but also to ensure that buyers and sellers in that way have a common understanding of what the product's characteristics are, and that way we reduce disputes and we can facilitate smoother trade. So that's the first. But setting standards for standards' sake and not necessarily ensuring that you've got mechanisms to measure and assure the quality is useless. So the second issue would be that we need to ensure that the exchanges have mechanisms to measure and assure the quality of those commodities through inspections, through ensuring that you've got different procedures like testing and sampling, because it's only when you know exactly what it is that you are getting will, I think, a proper transaction happen. And I think the third one is to play a role with regards to the warehousing and logistics, because a lot of times we don't necessarily have, and especially small-scale farmers don't necessarily have the best warehousing and logistics, support. So if exchanges have access to certified logistics and warehousing facilities, it will then make it easy to ensure that across the value chain, the quality is assured of those commodities. So whoever buys knows that regardless of how it was warehoused or whatever happened with it, that particular commodity moving from point A, B to C, that they know that they're getting what they actually are paying for. So in all of this, what then becomes important is that there should be proper contracting as well, to ensure that everybody knows what the rules are, everybody knows what they're supposed to adhere to, but most importantly, should I, as either the buyer or the seller, not adhere to those rules, what then happens? What are the protective mechanisms for the counterpart, so that everybody is then protected in that way? Now, what it then also then leads to is that there's a need to not only capacity develop, but particularly empower, especially the farmers, the traders, and all other stakeholders in the value chain, so they all know what they are supposed to do. So nobody gets surprised about what should be and what should not be. And I think finally, in the context of regional cooperation, I think exchanges can play a major role in helping to harmonize standards across different regions. If I take the regional communities in Africa, that within the Western African situation, if there are exchanges across different countries, they should all be able to get harmonized through ECOWAS, and the same on the eastern side, same with the southern side, so that over time we can then find a way towards getting standards that are appropriate, that are applicable, and that are also going to make trade easy, not only between countries in a particular region, but across regions, and most importantly, if we want to take it to the international market. So those are some of the ways I think community exchanges can play a role in ensuring that those standards are not only set, but are also applied.
Thank you. It brings back to what was discussed most probably yesterday, as what is upscaling, what is the gap, what is the need at the moment. And it goes back again to say, with capacity building, everything could be achieved or attained simultaneously. Prince, let me come back to you. What are the specifics or specific barriers in Nigeria particularly, or for exporters that are facing, and the commodity exchange, and how can it be mitigated, to not continue challenging the food security industry?
Yes, thank you very much. In the first instance, the commodity exchange business in Nigeria has been a challenge. For instance, the Abuja Commodity Exchange, which is the federal government-sponsored one, has not been able to get into action the way it should be. And that's a big challenge, because if the government can't do it right, not just government, Central Bank of Nigeria is the main facilitator. They have up to 59 point something, almost 60%. And then all that, they chair the board and all that. But it became very difficult, such that the Association of Nigerian Exporters, under my leadership, was disturbed. In about 2010, 2011, when they launched Global Board of Trade in Mauritius, I was invited to Mauritius. I had to go to see what where the commodity exchange should be, so that advocacy can be right. So when I went to Mauritius, I came back. I also heard they wanted to be they make Nigeria to be involved. So I came back, asked them to write. They said they are rewritten to the central bank governor. I said, send me the letters. When I came here, I pursued the governor of Central Bank. He obliged. I invited G-Board's management to come. We met them, went to Security and Exchange Commission, took them there. I took them to Lagos here, to Market Dealers Association. We had some trainings, these things. We went to Abuja Commodity Exchange. I thought something will come out of it. But at the end of the day, since that 2010, 2011, in fact, I went on the DSTV, they came interviewing me about it. So we did a lot to see what can happen. It didn't happen. So government cooperation has not helped matters in that regard. So that is the major one. Then in the year 2000, during the COVID, when you couldn't buy and sell directly, the need arose. And then we heard a good story that the president, the government at that time, approved that they should reactivate the place and inject up to 50 billion naira. Committees were set up, meetings held. If you see the recommendation, great recommendations. Great recommendations of about 100 and something pages. Now, it didn't work out. The money was not invested, and so, but luckily, FX, you can see FX on one of the billboards. The FX, the young man started launching FX. So the one you can see now is FX, the private sector one. So this issue of setting up, if government had been able to drive, government will also make legislations that will guide the process. So right now, the Security and Exchange Commission has not made a policy, so that is the key. But for the exporters, for the development, we have seen great challenges, because the Commodity Exchange is the one that will address those challenges. For instance, getting to bring logistics issues, like a colleague mentioned, warehouse receipt systems. Those things can only be in place when there is a functional stuff. You look at a situation where the banks cannot be committed to the commodities business. If you look at, I think it's the Malawi, the African Commodity Exchange for Africa. If you look at that, you can take example from there. When they had World Food Organization program, they're aligning with them. What happened was that they appointed like 3 banks that could do the transactions. So the value chain was taken along, the farmers, the brokers and all that. So you can now have a system where the banks are ready to honor the warehouse receipts. They are ready to grant loans to brokers and farmers and all that, so that the process can run. But when you don't have that, everybody is afflicted, and so that's been a challenge. But we believe that with what we are doing now, the ears of authorities will be open, and they will make legislations. Even the legislature is also going to play a part, because without the rules, like our colleague was saying, without the rules, and these rules should not be guidelines made by the management of the organization. It should be rules that are rooted in legislation, that if you do this, this is what it will be. And what that happens, you can make it. But for now, we are managing the situation. We take the risk, and we cannot hedge the risk. Risk of finance, risk, like I said, of delivery, but everybody has to take. What we look at is that globally for Africa, the advantage of commodity exchange will be that these farms can be, we can buy from farms across the borders, without, and so overstepping these issues of physical barriers. But every country, or like Nigeria, must decide to reach out. We have done something in other areas, like we have, what do we call it? We have trade hubs export trade houses in Egypt. We have in Kenya. I was in Kenya for the commission of that one. We have approved one for South Africa. We have done. When we have demands from those hubs, in fact we have in Togo, we have demands from those hubs. The commodity exchange should be the one that can complement the orders that are coming from there, and there will be assurance that we are doing the best. So these are some of the issues impacting. Thank you.
Thank you. Whew. It just makes me, take 10 steps back to say, in each and every commodity, for every growth, there's 10 more challenges picking up. But I think we just at the right step where we can actually just work towards what can be done and how can it be done. And of course, that requires partnership and stakeholders relation management. And Tatesene, let's look at the industry, what it requires and what can be done to it, or what can be done through it. Of course, I'm looking at technological advancement. What can be the technological advancement to leverage the commodity exchange and of course to advance their functionality on food security impact? Thanks,
ma'am. So I think the Prince here spoke up, gave examples of some of the exchanges like in Kenya, in Malawi, and of course the Abuja one. We have a similar one in South Africa. It's called SafeX. And all of these, I think they are good case studies for us to see what technology can actually do in order to make the exchanges far more efficient. So a lot of them, and I'll just talk through some of the common technologies that have been applied, is that a lot of them have a digital platform on which, whether you are a trader, whether you are a farmer or any other stakeholder, you are able to get real time what the price of the different commodities are and the fluctuations thereof, what commodities are available and where you can source and so forth. And these are also made available in some instances through mobile apps. And I think yesterday afternoon we had 2 case studies, I think, on the podium, which was the last session we had, where we had those 2 case studies that were showing exactly how you can actually use technologies. And I think the easy one to latch onto would be that the most low-hanging fruit in terms of technology is the use of mobile applications. So because we know that 80 to 90% of all enterprises, and this is not just in agriculture, but just all enterprises on the continent, we do our business using our mobile phones, because that is the best way to connect for voice, for connecting to your internet and everything. So if you are able to then make that information available on mobile apps, so that real time, any stakeholder is able to know exactly what's actually happening with commodities that they may be interested in, a farmer can then place onto that app what they have available, as long as it is obviously in line with the quality standards that have been set and so forth. And you are able to then know as a potential trader that this is what's available and this is where it's available and these are the prices. So even the trends can then be tracked on there. What this also then lends you to is that you are able to then take advantage of big data, because you are able to aggregate all that information. You are able to build over time models of trends to say these are the sorts of commodities that are most hot at this time, and these are the ones that are not, as fast moving as the other ones at a particular time. And even the farmers who may potentially have to make decisions around when do they make their commodities available, they can see on those using the same data. So it's transparency of data across from those that make decisions in terms of the running the exchange, but across the value chain back to the farmers as well. And I think what we need to also then look at is that agriculture is poised also for advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning, because those algorithms are able to then help us to be able to analyze data very, very quickly, and then decision making is made far more quickly, and hopefully we are able to also make quality decisions about where we need to place our commodities, where the demands lie, where the trends are and what we could actually do, even where gaps exist. It becomes easy to then be able to see it from there. So these are just some of those, and I think all the different exchanges that we have on the continent from the south, even out here, have elements of those in place. But I think all I was just trying to illustrate is if you have an aggregation of different types of technologies, depending on what is most applicable and appropriate, we can actually advance this far more than we've been able to do up to now. Thanks.
All right, and I'm also imagining an industry where it can actually track its productivity and you know, annual data collection, where it can be reviewed, of course, and analyzed to grow the industry. Thank you so much. Just in 1 minute, I would like to find out from you, how can collaboration between commodity exchange, government, private sector stakeholders enhance effectiveness of exchange, improving the food security?
It is key, it is key. For instance, the government, the private sector, development partners, we need them. If you look at some of the exchanges existing, you will see, I can mention some of them, like USAID, like World Food Program. Some of these ones, they also help in facilitating, even agri, they help in facilitating the warehouse receipts evolution. The government has to make the policies, the legislations that will sit. And aside that, there's one that is very, very serious. The government intervened too much in the markets. I know that in this country, some weeks or last month, they announced that intervention in the export of foods from Nigeria. And I know in some states where they would say, you cannot, they intervene in the movement and traders associations, market situation. So the government should be able to look at the products that we are trading on exchanges and see that they have limited interventions in those markets. And then the farmers, through the education, like a colleague was mentioning, through transparent information, consistent information, the farmers, the progress should be able to adjust and know that this is a big deal, a win-win deal for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we all have an opportunity and a chance to reignite and reinforce stakeholder relations to attain this. Dr. Sene, in 1 minute, what are the future trends and potential challenges you foresee in evolution commodity exchange and how they can actually address to further enhance the food security in Africa?
Well, I think the leading lights that we've mentioned could actually do more to leverage each other's successes, to be able to then say what is working in one area and what could we learn from it, so that when we then set up systems in our different countries, we don't necessarily have to start always from ground zero. And I think latching on to what the Chief was saying, if we have a framework or a partnership framework that is able to manage all the different stakeholders, I think that will help us to move the needle a little bit more. And I think we are at a point in the African continent where we need to take advantage of this move about the Africa continental free trade area, to be able to harmonize a lot of what has been done so far, so that we can eliminate a lot of inefficiencies. And I think we stand at a precipice of actually getting a lot of good work coming out. Only if everybody that is in the value chain can come on board and do what they need to do. Because I think the Europeans showed us with the European Union and their commissions how they were able to robustly work to say, we may be as different nationalities within the European Union have our own interests, but actually the continental interests far surpass the national interest, and therefore you are able to then even gain more at an aggregated level on a continental basis, and they are now able to, as an economic bloc, be able to call prices that everybody else would need to then take. So as Africa, we are exactly at that same point where we have the opportunity to be able to start charting a way forward that's different from how we've done it so far. And I think all of that would then be able to help us to move things into the future. But of course, the challenge is whether, like Chief was saying, does everybody that comes into the party, you know, stay in their lane, in a sense? Bring what you need to bring, take what you need to take. As government, know your role. As multinationals, know your roles. As trade interested bodies, know your roles. And all of us then hold hands to be able to then have a new way or a new accord of how we do trade. And that's the only way that we'll be able to address issues of food security. Because as long as we are marching on the same pathway that we are doing now, we are not going to get very far anytime soon. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I think as a take home, I'm looking at the transport cost, I'm looking at the issue of the barriers and also the significance of, you know, the exchange commodity across Africa. But with that said, I'm seeing an opportunity again for all African countries to actually breed and build and birth a new era of a trade and export business industry that is more revived from this collaboration. As today we are in a collaboration setup. So I believe in more of it and more to be done through this, and that we are all going to take charge, of course, and giving birth to a new trade and export industry that brings in a diverse commodity exchange. Thank you so much. You are such a wonderful team, and I think more than anything I'm taking is that your expertise in this industry would actually give birth to a new range of this industry to grow into a different direction. Thank you so much. I think our MC decided to give me a platform to MC the program again. So before we leave, can we please have a picture? I think since Linda decided to go and do other things, I will give 2 or 3 questions, an opportunity for 2 and 3 questions, and the panel could take.
Good morning. My name is Mr. Tanko from Taraba State. Like the chairman said, the exchange in Abuja about 2010 or so, 9-10, it seemed like it was going to be very active. When I saw the topic, I was actually hoping somebody from either the Abuja exchange or somebody from an exchange would be here, because as much as the 2 participants are experts in their own field, there are peculiar challenges to the exchange that seems to understand. Nobody seems to understand. For instance, for a typical farmer like me in Taraba, most people farm system excess is what they sell. Now, it's very difficult to do business with the exchange because they don't seem to have warehousing and receipts that are accessible to people in rural areas. There has not been any visibility from the government-based exchange. And then, of course, there's little trust in the privately run exchange because people don't have as much confidence that your losses would be well secured. So my question is, how far can they go in boosting confidence in the local farmer to participate in the exchange program if they are not investing in the infrastructure for us to access? And is there something that can be done about that?
Thank you.
Really, The issue of confidence is very important. Like I said yesterday, that export business is integrity business number one. I can also say today that confidence is key in the commodity exchange business. Confidence from the farmers trusting on the platform, the bankers trusting, everybody trusting. But that can be done if the promoters are serious. In the case of Nigerian Commodity Exchange, as it is now called, it's been changed from Abuja Commodity Exchange to Nigerian Commodity Exchange. I think with this MAA, Market Access Africa panel discussion, we will not sleep again. You know, I complained that around 2009, 2010, 11, we made a move to get the government to do something. That's why you saw the news everywhere. The central bank governor gave me audience and all that, we did it. But we went back because nothing was happening. Now, with what they have done, the report we have in hand now, that you can see, if you go to that NCX exchange, you can download what they call profile. You see that report, which the former central bank governor did. All that we need now is, does the government, or this present government, have the willpower? That's all that is needed. The willpower to take a step to get it reactivated. Everything has been recommended, and orders given, approvals given for money to be invested. If the central bank that's been holding up to 59% cannot invest, that's a challenge. So now that central bank is no more investing, they should look at alternatives like they had mentioned, the Nigerian, I think the NSIA, the Investment Authority, should be doing. So we have the hope that we who are affected should lead the way in advocacy. So the Association of Nigerian Exporters, we are mandated to speak on anything that concerns export and in all ramifications. So if you have any sector, farmers, aggregators, whatever, let's team up and get the government to understand that their willpower, the political will, is what is needed to get that done. It's not the money, because money is not a problem of this country. It's how to use the money for a purpose that it should be meant. So have hope. It should happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I see there's another hand there and another one here.
Thank you. My name is Peter Gekonyo from Kenya. We are in the business of coffee farming. Just a quick one on the commodity exchange. My concern is probably to what extent were the farmers involved in the whole development of the commodity exchange to get a buy-in. Again, addressing the issues of the infrastructure, and then also looking at the differentiation between different locations where farmers are presenting their commodities so that the farmers can have a buy-in. Then finally, is also looking at the participants in the commodities exchange. Under which framework are they registered? And are all the participants registered and subscribing to the same regulations? Because it is very unique when you're dealing with the farmers, because farmers are looking for money. They have the opportunities to sell their commodities at any given time. And then what would prompt the farmers to sell their commodities through the exchange? It's a different ball game depending on how the exchange is able to win the structure. So for me, I think the panelists can be able to help us to understand that, but that is a very critical element for sustainability of the commodity exchange. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I think you're very spot on, because ultimately the farmer needs to be at the center of all of this, because they are the ones that produce what commodities need to go into the exchange. And I fully agree that in most cases, commodity exchanges, especially if they are government driven, obviously they would have been set up with legislation and everything that comes from government. And it depends how it happens from country to country. If I were to reflect on the South African process, is that any legislation that before it gets to even be debated in Parliament, there's a call for public commentary. But the challenge becomes whether the farmers and the farmer bodies and any interest groups within agriculture are then made aware, and they actually, on an organized basis, are able to make commentary. And that's the first part, to ensure the buy-in, because if they are able to then inform the flavor as well as the type of legislation that needs to be put in place to even enact the legislation that is going to give rise to a commodity exchange, that would be first prize. And then secondly, to ensure that on an ongoing basis, as soon as the exchanges are run, those areas of engagement and continual accountability mechanisms need to be in place with the farmer groupings, but other stakeholders as well, so that everybody feels that this is their exchange, a community exchange. It may be run through a government entity, and that's fine, but ultimately government is made up of us. We are the people that make up government, that give it the mandate, and therefore we still need to, I think, take the responsibility to say, look, we've given you the mandate, and therefore because this is our bread and butter, we need to obviously hear from you. And I think the capacity development that you speak about and the empowerment is something that needs to be there all the time. Because the issues that the other colleague was raising around infrastructure, that should be part of the blueprint of what the exchange needs to take into account. Because like I was trying to illustrate in some of the input, unless you've got all of those areas, curated, and you know exactly how the standards are supposed to work across the entire value chain, and you know what inputs are required and what resources are required, and those are enabled, you will not be able to get much success. So I think for me, it's in the design that the magic needs to work. But even when they've already been done, I think all this should not be lost. We just need to ensure that we can organize, because unless there's agitation on a mass basis, nothing happens. No revolution happens when people are just sitting down. And I'm not advocating for war or anything, but just to say revolution for change needs to be as a result of people coming together and saying, we need our voices to be heard. And I think the farmers need to be central to that. Thank you.
Yes, you mentioned about farmers having the rights and market, the privilege to sell their stuff. Right. Well, the benefit of the stock exchange, or the commodity exchange rather, is that you are not compelled to sell one way. There are mechanisms like if you are selling futures, you are now talking of selling something at an agreed between two of you, you agree you are selling this product now. We have this product, we agreed today. This is the quantity that will be delivered in August. And this is the price that will be paid. That will not change. That's what the commodity exchange can do. Whereas, if such a mechanism is not there, as the prices go up and go down, the farmer is the one having the challenge. Another thing is that you also have the spot market, where you also can sell now. And that's done daily. What does that convey to you? It means that the commodity exchange is able to know where the buyers are across the globe. And then the farmer, or through their brokers, will understand that there is a demand. So it's a matter of supply and demand mechanism here. So if you have the products and you don't know where to sell, it's a challenge. So the commodity exchange does that. Like in coffee, you say, the Kenyan commodity exchange, you know, worked well for the coffee. That's why it is not compulsory that you take all products to the commodity exchange at the same time. You look at the strength, because there should be volume. If there is no volume, you can't have a good business. Volume and consistency, so that what volume does not mean one-time volume. Just like export does not mean one-time sale. Export means that you can produce continuously, you can do it. So it helps. It helps. There should be hope. For all countries, if the African Continental Free Trade Area is into this, it will work faster. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we had one more hand there at the corner.
Good morning, panelists. My name is Idris. I'm an agricultural exporter. There is this news flying all around Nigeria here in the House that there is this new bill passed or still on the floor about GMO. So I want to know the implication of this in agricultural exports or commodity exports. Take for instance, last year we had this trade to make to the US on a commodity, and they were requesting for non-GMO. In this sense, in the process of getting the text to prove to them that what we are exporting to them is non-GMO, we had to go through a lot, which was costing us a lot of tens of thousands of dollars. So I want to know if this is the right time or is it best for exporter in agric. Thank you.
The good thing about export is that you don't operate in the production era. You are operating in the marketing era. By that I mean you don't produce before looking for the buyer. You produce for the buyer. So if you are producing GMO products, it's your business. You have to look for GMO products buyers. But for anything you want to produce, be guided. That's why associations like ours are here. You have to be guided. Testing is a different matter, but the buyer must give you specifications of what he or she wants before you can have an agreement. Never you take orders that the specifications are not clearly stated for any product for whatever reason. So you may have had the issue of not having the specs before the production or before considering the market. So don't pick the order before specs. Ask for the specs. They give you the specifications first, and then you are now producing according to specs. For if you don't do according to specs, you lose your opportunity. For a matter of testing, we are advocating that this issue of standard organization here, NAFDAC there, Quarantine here, all these agencies operating, and you don't need to leave one to the other. There is the World Trade Organization standard, what they call Risk Analysis Center, where you can have a common facility laboratory, where you can always get things done at the right time. So you don't need to run too much and spend too much money, because like you're talking now, you may be going from pillar to pole looking for who will do it. And none of them will tell you it's not my business. They will say, come and pay, come and register. So I believe in what we are doing now, for instance, the commodity exchange content for quality is clear. They must have those you can certify, and they recognize the certification. And certifications for national products are not the same like certifications for international market, except country by country national recognitions of certifications. But there are world-class ones. Even at that, they are still specific interests of the buyer. The buyer might decide to say, in all this, you have met all the qualities, but this is how I want my packaging or my colors to be. These are very important before you embark on orders and production. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really want to thank Gabbey and my amazing panelists for doing justice to the topic. I hope we're taking notes. It's important that you really understand specifications and what your customers want before you go in, just to make sure that you meet up.